So let's talk about children. Children in the sense of data templating. We were just talking about how to directly data template, and when I say directly, I mean we have a build object that maps directly to a dynamic data object with the exact same name. Now, templating can extend to children. Parents always understand who their children are, and children always understand who their parents are. And because of that, children can always inherit data from their parents. This is very helpful for templating simple DOM structures. So for example, our input bin that has an input field and a label. That's a very common structure that we can reuse over and over again. And dynamic data really helps with this. So to reference parental dynamic data, it's not much different than directly referencing dynamic data. If you look here, we have, in a nicer form than from the whiteboard, we have our three build objects on the left here, our input attributes, so now it's not input bin, it's called input attributes, and that has attributes with an ID of input attributes and a class of input bin. And it has two children, input field 1 and input label 1. And then we see below that our two build object children, input field 1 and input label 1. And let's just make note that since this is just a big collection of objects, the order does not matter. Input field 1 and label 1 could be above input attributes. They could be at the bottom of the page, and input attributes is at the top of build.json. But in this case, I just have them right next to each other. And then so looking at input field 1, we have a type of input, and then attributes, the name, this is where things get a little interesting. The name is parent::data.name. So if we were to look at this, just by covering up parent, data.name would say, go to data.json, or go to the dynamic data, and look for a dynamic data object called input field 1, if parent wasn't there. Well, in this case, it wouldn't see one, and so it wouldn't build anything. It would just populate it with undefined. However, since we have parent: in front of it, this child understands that it's being constructed within the build object input attributes. So it goes and looks instead for a dynamic object called input field 1, it looks for input attributes. It sees input attributes, and inside of input attributes there are three objects, for each being populated with a property called name and a property called label. So to access that name, it goes parent::data.name, and if you look down on the label, it's parent::data.label. Now, children 2 levels deep can't take advantage of input attributes data. They can only take advantage of data in input field 1. However, input field 1, input label 1, and any other children that input attributes has can take advantage of dynamic data for input attributes. Now, this also is a good example of where there's multiple dynamic data objects within the array. There's 3. So that means that it's going to build 3 DOM elements. If we go to the very top of this really quickly, you'll see going all the way back to where build starts, inside of the form with ID new field, it's going to build the input attributes build object, which is this first build object we see here, along with its children. And after all of this has been constructed, we will end up with all of this HTML down below. What's nice about this is you build the structure one time, and then the things that change can be easily templated into that structure. So we build these 3 divs, each with 2 elements inside, or 9 elements essentially, all with attributes, with less build object. We have 3 build objects and 3 dynamic objects. So 6 objects builds 9 elements. Seems like a good deal to me.